Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Vivian Acquah, and I'm the Inclusive Workplace Wellness Advocate. And tonight is going to be amazing because, first of all, I have to say something about one of our guest speakers. He could not make it, but I hope to include John in a future episode. But still, I wanted to share something about tonight's episode. Last year around this time, I was not feeling included, not feeling like I belonged in a workplace that I was working at the time part time. And I made that realization that I needed to do something, I needed to speak up. And that's how Let's Humanize the Workplace was born because in everything that I do, in everything who I am, I'm always thinking about how can I create an environment where everybody feels at home. How can I create something where everybody can bring out their best self? And if I cannot bring out my best self, what can I do to address it? I did the normal route. I did have that conversation, but I also wanted to know um, I also wanted to see how many experts or how many people are out there who are looking for the same answers that I am looking, and that is how can we all create that humanized workplace where a lot of people are longing for, especially now, whilst people are working from home. So let's humanize the workplace. Know that even though this episode is live, you also have the opportunity to listen to these episodes via the amazing other platforms, amazing podcasts, but also watch it back on YouTube. With me, it's not a one night stand, and that no pun intended. It's all about listening back to the various conversations that I had in the past because I was just talking with my guest speakers today that everything that I do I am creating a thought seed, and it's up to you to give your thought seed some TLC, so some sun, some water, some love, some extra everything that you need to develop yourself on a professional level, but also on a personal level to excel in what you do, to become the best you. So, if there is a topic out there that I haven't discussed, please let me know or share in a comment or somewhere, and I will make sure that I will add it in because Let's Humanize the Workplace is about creating that special workplace for everyone. So not only for myself. I know I have a few topic favorites, but I also want to do some questions, some themes that you feel like I haven't addressed. So please let me know so that I can include that as well. So I won't be talking the whole time because it's not about the Vivian Acquah show, right? It's about having a conversation with different guest speakers. So tonight, it will be about how can self-awareness create belonging. And like I said, unfortunately, John cannot be there tonight. So I am going to have a conversation with Bev, with Steve, and with Benjamin. And I will bring them up so that I can properly introduce them and give me a moment because I have a whole bio script here and I will start with Bev. So, Bev Attfield cares about the experience of people have at work and how leaders can craft and nurture engaging and inclusive workplaces. And Steve Yacovelli, also known as the Gay Leadership Dude and the author of Pride Leadership Strategies for the LGBTQ plus leader to be the king and or queen of their own jungle, of their jungle. Sorry, I added that in. Benjamin Reitzammer. I was previously also Bev. I was interviewed by Bev as well, and Benjamin. I was also interviewed by Benjamin. He has an amazing podcast as well, and Benjamin is an experienced technologist who leads organizations to high performance by nurturing human connections and enabling strong collaboration. And my name is Vivian Acquah, the Inclusive Workplace Wellness Advocate. And I'm looking at the screen now. It seems like I have Europe versus the other pond of the ocean,
It's
right?
not
It seems like that. It seems like that.
That's
So
right?
no, there won't be no fight. It's not
No
a fight. It's
fisticuffs.
not who's doing
No.
better.
It just means we're inclusive of all parts, well, almost
Right.
all parts of the world.
Definitely, definitely. So let's start with the first question, and I'll start with you, Benjamin. Why do we need to humanize? And I added the virtual aspect in it as well. But why do we need to humanize the workplace, whether it's working from home or whether it's in the office? What's your take on that?
First of all, thank you also for that awesome question. And I feel like the answer is already part of is already a part of the question, because if you put it that way, that also, or if we ask that question that way, then it's there is in it that right now the workplace is not human. It's and yeah, even without looking at any kind of studies or anything, I feel like almost everybody that I've talked to has some stories to tell why they feel or why they experienced different levels of inhumanity at their workplace. And of course, for some, it's much harder than for others. But most of all, I think we can all agree that the workplace right now, and most of the workplaces right now, are simply not great, or even very bad. And I think it's slowly changing a bit in recent years. So people are more and more like getting an understanding, or finally understanding that, this is the case, and finally accepting that this is the case, that not everything is really great, but really we have to do better. And so, I feel like I said, it's really just ask around, just talk to people. You don't ask underrepresented people, but also ask everybody else as well. And almost everybody will be able to tell you a story that it's not great, the workplace out there.
And can I ask you an additional question, that is, what are
Sure.
you doing in your own environment, your own circle, to build towards that humanized workplace?
Sure. So a lot of things, of course, or at least I hope it's a lot of things. And so first of all, I'm thinking about this topic for several years now. So not all of my career, but for a better part of the last 3 years. And even though and even so, I still don't really feel very well versed in that topic. But most of all, I really try to treat everyone around me as a human, like with huge amount of respect, really trying to acknowledge where everybody's coming from, not judging that in any way. Learning empathy every day anew, like how different people can be, and again, acknowledging that, letting that stand as it is. I think this is like the core practice, you could say, maybe, of what I'm trying to do, and everything else really follows from that. So if I treat people like people and not so much as resources, as I've been called in countless jobs before, then everything else really follows from that. And that I like ask people for, how do you feel about XYZ? And then again, in order to get a meaningful answer to these kinds of questions, I need to really build trust with people. I really need to build a connection with them. Really need to find out, like, who are you? How can we build a connection with each other? And how can you trust me? How can I trust you? And then lots of other things fall into place. But so I'd say these are like the most important things that I try to do every day.
I hope that people are taking notes, because these are amazing ingredients, and I love that you already shared them. So I'm going over to Bev. What do you have to share, Bev?
Well, I think building on what Benjamin was talking about, I think for me, if we've learned anything this year with what's unfolded with the pandemic, is that a workplace is made up of a collection of individual people who have all sorts of different things going on in their world. And in an office, you maybe don't get to see that, right? Because people arrive at the workplace, they sit at their desk, they go to the meeting room, but there's this barrier to what's happening in the rest of their lives. Now, for those of us who have moved to having to work remotely in our homes or wherever we've had to go, suddenly that barrier has been lifted, and we now see everyone in their natural environment, right? And we see warts and all what that looks like for people. And I feel like it's given us a much deeper understanding at an individual level of some of the struggles and stresses that people have that they're trying to manage in addition to their work. And for me, that's been a tremendous gift, because I feel like it's given us as employers and leaders in particular, some cues and triggers to understanding our people better and being more empathetic and understanding people's unique circumstances, and not being able to treat people as one amorphous group of people that all behave and show up in the same way, because they don't. So, I think
I just want to stop you, because you said something that has to be shared again, and that is, we are not all the same. Stop treating us like we are one and all the same, right?
100%. And I think that is, to another point that Benjamin raised, I think over time we have been shifting towards more humanized workplaces. It's happening slowly, but I think it was happening even before the pandemic arrived. And, things like further emphasis on employee experience and DE&I and, what I'd like to call the democratization of the employee within workplaces, where people's individual needs are now what's driving businesses, right? It's not the other way around anymore. So those organizations that are pretending or hoping to go back to normal, there is no normal to go back to. And honestly, why would we want to go back to that? People weren't happy. Productivity was terrible. People weren't fulfilled. We're not seeing the same degree of, opportunity, I think, if we were to look back, as we have now. And maybe that's just my optimist's way of looking at the world. But I think from an individual employee perspective, it's a game changer. We've 100% turned things around, and we should embrace that as far as we can.
I like that. I like that you embrace that, though there are different situations where companies do treat people like ish. They do treat people like dirt. And I just had this conversation earlier today that people are being furloughed or being let go like they are nothing, like they meant nothing. So I want to raise this point as well, as if you have to let go of a person, know that it's a person, they have a family, they have a connection with your company. And the last thing that you want to cause is more sorrow, more sadness, because the numbers didn't add up. There are also human ways of letting people go, like investing maybe $100 in their courses, or directing them to free courses that they can do to at least upskill their talent. And I wanted to share. Oh, no, wrong card. I wanted to share this one. I was so
Pick a card, any
listening to
card.
you. Yes. Steve.
Love it. Thanks for having me on the show. Super excited. And when I read the question, the first thing that popped into my head was something one of my professors said when I was getting my doctorate's actually in instructional technology and distance education. So this world of Zoom and StreamYard and all this has kind of been my jam pre-COVID. So I zeroed in on the word virtual and the humanization part of it. And that really, really like went up. And one of my professors said, I'm paraphrasing because it's been a while, but he said something very similar to this. Like the very first week when I started my program, the virtual world should get as close to the face-to-face world as possible. And I think that even pre-COVID, we should be striving to do that. When we as leaders, what can we do to do that? Well, when we're having those meetings, make everybody turn their darn camera on. I don't walk into a boardroom meeting with a bag on my head. So, there's little strategies that we can do as leaders that really foster that that inclusivity, that humanization, and we model that behavior. So it's going around and I mean, you did a beautiful job with this, Vivian, where some of us might have been more introverted and can't talk off the fly. So you gave those to us before. Brilliant, because you're keeping in mind the differences of the humans within, in this case, we'll pretend we're a workplace of 4, but it's really allowing us as leaders to think about, okay, well, yeah, there's technology in the way, but how do we overcome it? What can we do? And let's not lose, I think, to both Bev and Benjamin's point, we still want to engage with those around us. And while we can't walk down the office and have a virtual coffee with somebody or a real coffee, can we do that virtually? Or can we engage in that quote unquote water cooler talk that folks have? And so I think that's just like Bev, I think this is why Bev and I click, the glass half full kind of thing. So that's the opportunity I see here. And I love that we now have this opportunity. To Bev's point as well, we were slowly getting there. Now we've just been pushed out of the nest, and we have to figure this out. And some people are engaging in that a little bit differently than others, but I think it's an opportunity from at least my glass half full perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also what I just wanted to say something, and I lost it because I was attentively listening to you. So first of all, it will come back. I just wanted to share this awesome card, but it will come back. And we are talking about self-awareness. And Bev, since you brought this up, I'll start with you. Can you share why self-awareness is important for boosting belonging in the workplace, and maybe share your definition of belonging? Because I think before we start, you start answering that question, it's also important to know that people realize what the definition is of belonging or how you see that.
Well, I see belonging as feeling, first of all, part of a group, but the second part of it is feeling like I can be myself fully in that group. So those would be the two parts of it. And belonging is one of our basic human needs, right? It's, if we think about Maslow and his hierarchy of needs, it is one of the core human needs. And that doesn't go away in the workplace magically, right? It isn't this sort of inner sanctum where those needs no longer exist, because we're all living, breathing humans wherever we go. So we have those needs wherever we go. So belonging for me really is, in the workplace context, is about feeling like I can be there as my full self and I feel embraced for my full self.
So you would say belonging is the formula for the E, as in equity and inclusion, EI?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the underpinning for everything in an organization. It's definitely the underpinning for culture. I mean, if you think about culture in and of itself, it's a group that's created by the practices and rituals of that group. So, love it or leave it, culture is there, and maybe it does create a bit of an in-group, out-group situation, because you're creating with your workplace culture the in-group, right? Like that, you want people to be part of that group. I think that's a healthy thing for an organization, because you're necessarily creating the operating manual for your organization that is your rituals and behaviors. And it doesn't mean that people can't be individual and show up as themselves. It just means it's sort of the guideline for how you do operate within that culture. So I think that, belonging is the root of everything. If you want to really help your people to be fulfilled and flourish in your organization. If you don't care about that, then why would you care about belonging? So
that's simply put. And how does self-awareness add into the creation of belonging?
Well, I think self-awareness necessarily implies self, and it's what I know about myself. And in terms of belonging, it's got two parts. For me, self-awareness is, first of all, about understanding what my own needs are to belong, and what does that look like for me, and to what degree do I need to feel like I belong, and then what does that look like in terms of what the workplace needs to provide to me to realize that. But the other part of it is self-awareness around my own shortcomings in terms of how I make others feel like they belong. So do I operate with stereotypes? Have I got skill gaps in that I don't know how to demonstrate empathy, so I don't know how to understand what someone else needs to feel like they belong? Is it self-awareness around language that I use that excludes people? So
that's a good rephrasing of that. Yeah.
So for me, it's got two sides, and I don't know, Benjamin and Steve probably have their own perspectives on it, but that's really how I think about it. And because it starts with self, and as I've said earlier, I believe that organizations start with individuals. If each of us don't have self-awareness, then we really can't humanize the workplace. So that's in a nutshell how I think about it.
Steve.
Of course, I have a slide for this. But when I was thinking about kind of this question and moving forward, there's an opportunity that I used to do whenever I teach diversity and inclusion, and you start with the conversation of, well, what is diversity? And for me, diversity is the many similarities and differences between people. So there's that, and then inclusion is the many is bringing those folks into the world. As when I started this area of focus, it was when I was actually at Disney and I was teaching this, and one of my mentors said, diversity is being invited to the dance, and inclusion is actually being asked to dance. And now if we look at belonging, that's kind of like the next generation. And to me, belonging is that feeling of respect and included, that I can bring my full and authentic self to work. And so in the dancing analogy, it's, I'm invited to dance, I'm actually asked to dance. And now with belonging, it's I can dance any way I want, and that's completely okay. And
so you're a good dancer or a bad dancer?
I'm not. It depends on the style of music. I actually, side note, I had to take ballroom dancing as a college graduate, and I was pretty good at Jennifer, I gotta say. But I don't care. Like, that's the great thing about belonging. You can just really be that dancer how you were. And so, I always put all this stuff through the lens of leadership, because that's really kind of my intersection. So as leaders, what we should be doing is making sure that we are fostering that sense of belonging for those of us within the workplace. So to Bev's awesome point, what language am I using? I know here in the States, I'm originally from the Philadelphia area, and one slang term for a gaggle of people is "use guys." And so I luckily never really picked that up. Now that I live in Orlando, Florida, in the quote unquote South of the US, you say y'all as an inclusive. Well, that's much more inclusive, actually. And so you start to think of little tiny things like that really can have a big impact on folks. And to Bev's point about the inclusivity piece, I when I teach all this stuff, I try to think about it through the lens, and this is where the slide comes in, is you look at it through three different lenses. You think in, you speak up, and you act out. And so to your point about the self-awareness, that's what think in means to me, is I need to have that mindfulness of what am I doing? What am I not doing? What is that language I'm using? How is that impacting? What are the behaviors that I'm doing? And so you absolutely have to start with you, then speak up is kind of around you, act out as the larger organization. But you can't make any leadership change unless you start within your own personal head.
Awesome. Thank you. Benjamin.
Wow, that's really hard speaking after these
it's
two.
It's not a
people.
competition. It's not a competition.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I of course also want to add something like at least a little bit original. I cannot add much to the definition. I mean, both of you really nailed it there. I would have picked up like the same analogy that Steve did. Maybe add just one more thing, which is the word belonging for me is already says it all in a way. In that, I want the feeling. I want to belong. I want to have the feeling of I do belong here, and I'm not some outsider. And there, what Bev said with regards to in group and out group. So I want to belong to that group. That feeling that, yeah, maybe even desire. If that's there, then. Or maybe let's say a healthy desire, like in that sense that it can actually be fulfilled. Yeah, that's belonging. Plus everything that was already said.
And how do you see self-awareness being important for belonging?
Again, what Steve and Bev already said was, covered almost everything that I would have said. I want to add maybe one more thing, which is that, self-awareness can help me can help increase my resilience in a place where I maybe not belong.
Yeah.
So being aware of myself, being aware of my strength, being aware of my capabilities, being aware also where myself ends and the system around me, where the systems around me start, being aware of all these moving parts of this complex system and how these things, all these aspects interact, that can help me, build up resilience and really escape this whole, drama triangle thing, where when maybe when I'm the person who, does not belong for any kind of reason, self-awareness can help me escape that drama triangle, and that I'm not the victim anymore, but them, which is of course also wrong, but somebody else is acting in a way, and I still have my own self-worth, self-responsibility for my own for myself, for my feelings about how I feel about the things that happen around me. And so self-awareness can really help me get stronger and be more resilient.
I'm curious to hear, just a quick question. I'm curious to hear, when this self-awareness start in your career? Was this early? Was this in the middle, or was this where you're at right now, just a few years ago? Maybe share a short answer about when did this start?
That's a hard one. One that I've been trying to answer for myself for maybe like the last 20 or 25 years. I don't know. The short answer is, I think it started before my work career. When I learned, when I had a partner back then who was really able to mirror me and to show me how I'm perceived by other people, and how I'm perceived as an asshole. Sorry for strong language here, but how my way of speaking, how my way of being sarcastic and all that is really hurting people around me, and it's really making me not reach people. And so I think that kind of kicked it off, really, and then it evolved in some way.
Good. Thank you for sharing. And Bev, what about you?
I think I've probably known myself pretty well, from a very young age, and knowing, what some of my stronger traits are. And I think that the difference is actually doing something about the things that are perhaps standing in my way. But I would say, in terms of was there a line drawn in the sand? I had a pretty significant life event happen about 10 years ago, and that event was pretty traumatic, and it really made me step outside of things and just realize that, and this is something that's stuck with me ever since then, is you don't know what any person is dealing with at any moment at any part of the day. And they are carrying so much with them that they're hiding and they're not showing. So my own self-awareness extended into being self-aware of other people, and realizing that, you have to just be sensitive and kind to people, and just be kind to yourself first. Like that was the biggest learning that I took away. So I think that's for me. It was definitely a life event that sort of shook me up and made me realize how really to be self-aware.
It's good that you're bringing this up, because people don't realize that we are all in this tornado or in this huge storm. But the thing that people don't realize is, maybe I'm in a rubber boat, or maybe you are in a yacht, or maybe you have your own private plane, just like our king who took his private plane to escape. Now I'm I'm sharing too much about the Netherlands, but we all have our own vehicle to embrace, or to go through this storm, and not seeing that maybe somebody lost somebody at the moment, or a loved one, or dealing with financial insecurities. And therefore, I just want to spread more human reactions, more empathy, and more kindness in the world, because that's what we need to at least brace this storm at the moment. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, similar to Bev, I would actually put it to a life event. In this case, when I figured out my authentic self, I didn't come out until 24 years old. So I went through undergrad, everything was fine, quote unquote. And this white cisgendered quote unquote straight dude didn't have a lot of, the privilege was there and I didn't have to think about that. And then once I figured my authentic self out, and the first time I got gay bashed, I'm like, oh, I am an other now. This is interesting. And so my lens really shifted. And then I started to understand a little bit more about, well, gee, what if what are my female friends going that I don't see them? What are my people of color friends seeing? And so I'm fortunate that I was able to open my eyes. And, I just turned 50 last week. So it's like half my life now. Yay. Half my life has been in this, white cisgender white dude bubble kind of thing. And I'm so happy for that and thankful for that, because I might not have to your wonderful word, empathy, I may not have had the opportunity to really exercise that empathetic lens had it not been for discovering my own true authentic self.
Okay. That comes to the next question, and that is, since we are ending with you, why not start with you, Steve? So can you share one reason why belonging needs to be every leader's priority, especially now?
When I teach this kind of stuff with clients, we actually have this conversation, and I do this for twofold. One, because it's a great question, but two, I have found that when I do these workshops and I do it for like corporate clients, people are at various levels of engagement when it comes to exercising inclusivity within the workplace. So I kind of start like, here's what I think are the three ways. The first is, we as leaders, we as a business, a workplace, engage in embracing inclusivity and fostering a sense of belonging, because depending on where we live in the world, legally we have to. So there's kind of that punitive part. But then on the opposite side of the spectrum, it's the right thing to do. It makes the world that much better. And so in that continuum, then in the middle is the concept of, it actually makes your business better and the business case. And so I approach it from people. I know that I would venture a guess, the four of us in this virtual room are on that kind of ethical, social, makes the world a better place spot. But not everybody's there. And I do, being inclusive and respectful, I embrace that. But however, and I use the phrase, I don't know if it's going to translate for folks, that I made up a word, or it's a made up word called voluntold, which is someone, a lot of times people are in my workshops because they were voluntold to be there, meaning their boss said, it's a really good idea if. So, and I respect that. And I know
you can say they are forced.
Yeah, whatever. Compulsory, I think, is what my British friends say. But I understand that, and so I go into these workshops as if nothing else, somebody changes their behavior because they're like, wow, this is going to better fit the business and me and my team. That's cool. Okay, the outcome's still the same. You're being more inclusive. I would love for people to get into that more. It's the right thing to do to make the world that much better. Yes, of course, awesome sauce, but not always going to happen. But I think that's kind of the way that I like to phrase it up for leaders is, one of these three ways should resonate with you. All three might, but at least let's start at the middle and go with that business impact and go from there. That tends to be a good way for folks to kind of get on board.
Yeah, and also what I wanted to add is more and more companies are applying this formula, are applying belonging, are applying DEI in the company. And when you realize that your competitor is doing better regarding these topics, aren't you missing out, and aren't you missing clients? There are people maybe not looking at your company as the top 10 company, but as a company because they saw at Indeed, or they saw at Great Places to Work, or they saw what is the other platform. There are so many job platforms out there where people can really share something about inclusivity, or something about being a ... workplace that isn't, that does not pay a positive contribution regarding humanizing the workplace. So know that even though people are more vocal, it will show to your stakeholders, and even stakeholders are asking about, show me the numbers. What are you doing? What is your policy? What are you doing there? So I'm seeing improvements. in my case, I would say I want it to be amplified. But then again, every baby step that people are taking, every baby step a company is taking, is a good step in my case.
What I think is going to also come out of this COVID time is, so we're talking about right fit talent, and we're taking geography out of the mix for a lot of roles and organizations and workplaces. So now you have to be even that much more attractive to get the right talent, because they don't just have to live down the street; they can be across the country, across the world. And so if I'm a smart workplace, and I'm a smart leader, I need to think through, like, how am I making our workplace that much more enticing for somebody to come and say, like, I want to go work with Benjamin's company. They're doing cool stuff, and they're a workplace that fosters belonging and authenticity. And
he at least has cool cards.
Very cool cards, pizza movement cards. Yeah. So I think that's, to me, one of the exciting things about COVID is it's going to force some organizations who maybe still aren't embracing this kind of stuff, that they want to be competitive or stay competitive and get right fit talent, they're going to have to. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. Benjamin, the guy with the cool cards.
Yep. Everything that Steve said, of course, and I really want to build up on that last point that you made about like finding talent and the competition for talent in a way, is that belonging or self-awareness can create belonging, and so self-awareness is in a way like a continuation of that with what Steve just shared. So once I've managed to attract all that great talent, if I don't make them feel like they belong, then that can have like a serious business impact. I mean, we all know several numbers probably for like how much does it cost when a person already leaves after like 6 months of being on the job. So this can really suck. And this can cost a lot of money for a company. So in a way, it just makes so much sense from a business point of view. But then also, as Steve is correctly presumed, I'm much more on the for me, it was on the right side, the ethical, social aspect. Again, as a leader, I should be self-aware, like if I want to create a belonging space, or if I just want to create a high-performing space for my people. I need to be empathetic. I need to meet them where they are, so they can feel comfortable, they can feel belonging, and so on. And so as a leader, I must be self-aware. And if I'm self-aware and I look around my world, I talk to people and how their workplace sucks and so on, then for me, it's just logical to then say, like, okay, I must improve the life of the people around me. I must improve the workplace around me, because it's just the right thing to do. I mean, if I have a grain of self-awareness, then I really don't know how else you can act, really.
Yeah, it's good that you're mentioning, and also I like that you mentioned something about talent leaving the company too early, so they maybe a half a year, or within a year, or maybe within 2 years. Even though your talent is leaving, it's already a leak, so it's most of the time you cannot solve that or you cannot prevent that. But what I want to encourage you to find out what it is, why are they leaving, so that you can repair it, so that you can do something. Because if you don't hold these interviews or these exit interviews within 3 months, or you wait until they forget, therefore you don't know what to fix anymore, right? You will still be having a leakage of talent, and still people are leaving. So I would encourage you to reach out to those people who are leaving and do an exit interview, a heart-to-heart exit interview, where they are able to share the real reason why they are leaving. Bev?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Steve and Benjamin shared, but I think to take it one step further, I think if you do it for no other reason, do it for yourself. Because if you show up as a an authentic, vulnerable human being who really cares about whether or not other people are belonging
I need
and
those cards.
feeling cared for, that's going to help you grow as a person, and that spills over into other parts of your life. So accepting that you've got limitations, accepting that you've got work to do for yourself, putting the ego aside, or maybe it's the ego that drives us, actually, because we all want to feel like we belong and fulfilled and cared for as well, right? So I just feel like the work's got to start with yourself, and that for leaders, if they don't have any other reason, success of the business, retaining employees, being part of their workplace culture, just do it for yourself, because you're going to reap the benefits of investing in yourself ultimately. And people need you to show up in that way, right? Like, if you're going to be part of an authentic organization.
And she drops the mic. No, really, if you are going to be part of it.
That wasn't a threat.
So coming towards the next part, we have been talking about the company. We have been talking about the leaders, but there has to be some accountability towards the people, the employees. So what kind of reflective questions should talent be asking themselves to increase their self-awareness? And I'll start with you, Benjamin.
I was unsure for a moment. So what I like to I like to refer to the concept of, I don't know if that's actually a thing, but for me it's a thing, is self-contact. Like being self-aware is one thing. Self-contact, being in contact with yourself, with your feelings, with also your physical self. Like if I sit somewhere, it's almost like meditating sometimes. Like if I sit somewhere, and how does the chair feel around me? How does my feet feel on the ground, and so on. So self-contact is like a helpful first step for me, because it's in a way, even though I might have said something else right now, but it's a little bit less esoteric for some. It's not so much about like spiritual aspects and so on. It can be, but just asking yourself, like, how am I right now? How do I feel right now? Especially like that during, at the start of meetings, to simply like take just 10 seconds, not longer, or if you need more time, then of course also longer, but just take 10 seconds and ask like yourself. You don't have to share it. You can, then that's a check-in, but you don't have to. Just ask yourself, like, how am I right now? How do I feel? How does my body feel? Where am I coming from? That's another great question, so to speak. And so, and when you ask these questions in the beginning, it might be a little bit hard to answer them if you're not used to, like if you don't have built up vocabulary for feelings for yourself. And so what really helped me also in the beginning was like this feelings wheel by, I have to look it up, Dr. Gloria Wilcox. So simply like to have a vocabulary that can help me like put whatever I'm feeling right now into words that others don't have to, but can understand. That's really helpful. So from there, you can of course also always go deeper and talk about the difference between feelings and emotions, but it really starts with this being in contact with yourself, with your body, but also with just like, how am I right now?
I like that. And it reminds me of what my son has in school. Well, at least from the time that I was allowed to go in school, right before this whole lockdown, they had an emoji emotions wheel where the kids could at least share, today I'm feeling a little bit sad, and then they had a small, on a conversation with the teacher, or they're feeling happy. And why is it that we as adults don't do a check-in with ourselves? So thank you for sharing that. We need to check in with ourselves. Bev.
Yeah, I think an extension of that is checking in with what's happening around you. You know, part of self-awareness is understanding where you find yourself, you know, who else is there with you, what are the circumstances, what does the environment look like. So that's sort of context awareness. So, you know, reading the room, if you will, for how you're showing up, and then what does that mean for others around you. So learning those cues, learning to understand the impact of your words and your actions, and then taking the feedback that you get and actually improving yourself and continuing to learn and grow as an individual. So if you know that you show up, Benjamin, you were mentioning earlier, you know, your default is to be sarcastic. Well, take the cues that you're seeing around you and think about how you can actually retain that essence of yourself, but express it in a way that isn't harmful or hurtful to other people. So I think those two layers are necessarily part of self-awareness, which is context and impact awareness.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Bev. And Steve?
When I think about, you know, this kind of conversation, I often think about a situation where I was in a conference room similar to this one, and gentleman, it was a client we were at, and at the very head of the table was this male executive, and that's important to the story. And just as we're about to start the meeting, it was like the final meeting, I had one of my top doggers, one of my consultants with me, and the rest was like the project team from the client. And just as we're about to start, this male executive said, "Well, you know how all women drive." And everyone just stopped. But at that moment, no one said a word. And it was, I was about to say something, and Lori, my top dogger, kind of kicked me under the table, and she goes, "Wait!" And I'm so glad she did that, because and I'm sure you all know this, but you know, at that exact moment in time, we were all engaging in silent collusion. And I think when we try to push this out to those of us surrounding and those who aren't familiar with what silent collusion is, it's the practice of neither supporting nor defending the rights of others to be fully included in the workplace. So
what's happening right now, right?
It's that exact moment, exactly. And so what I've seen both leaders and team members do that can completely and utterly not just erode their own credibility and trust, but also really create a sense of not belonging within the workplace is to not defend those types of things and not really kind of call people out on that. So when we talk about, you know, how do we increase that self-awareness, I think it's holding each other accountable to and we could go in so many different directions, but for at least this one idea of you talking about those things, you know, and I do this cheeky thing, and I won't go too deep into this. I created this concept called Mop Sam. So if you know what kind of dog this is, it's a Hungarian pulley mop. His name is Sam, and so if you put his acronym together, it's 6 strategies for people to help remember to not engage in silent collusion in the workplace. And it's cheeky and it's silly, but it works. And because, like, you know, for example, you know, if someone says that stupid disparaging remark and you don't say anything or do something, then you're supporting that, or at least you're perceived to be supporting it. So maybe I do something like I say a non-word, which is the S in Mop Sam. So and that's actually what happened in the story. This gentleman who wasn't even sitting at the table, he was new to the project, was against the wall, and he just folded his hands and went, "Damn." And that was a very, very clear message that he was not on board with this signal. And it kind of started everybody else saying, "Yeah, Bob, what did you mean by that?" And so the great thing is, you know, that gentleman opened the doors for us to hold accountability to, in this case, this very, very senior executive, Bob. And he had the courage to do that, which was amazing. And then everybody kind of got on board with that. And they're like, "Well, yeah, Bob, our values say we're supposed to be inclusive. What are you doing?" And Bob was operating under his unconscious bias, and that's a whole other conversation. But I think it's these types of things, whether it be Mop Sam or whatever, that we can do to hold each other accountable when we hear those not so cool things said in the workplace.
Yeah. Next time, every time that I get into a situation where somebody is not activating their Mop Sam, I have a dog to remind myself also.
I mean, my brand is Top Dog Learning Group, so yeah, it also fits there too.
Okay, so coming back to you, Bev. We are almost at the end, and I always close off the show with a wish. We are almost at the end of 2020. We are starting almost with 2021. Hopefully, somewhere next year, we can say we can pursue a new, better normal where there is a humanization in the workplace and where there is belonging? And what will be your wish?
Well, I think I'd like to hope for not a repeat of 2020, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Although if we gain the change and the rate of change that we've gained from this year, that would be a good thing. But I think my wish would be that we continue to dismantle the sources and attitudes of exclusion, and we, without sounding soft about this,
Yeah.
I think we need to get back to the core of what it means to be humans. And we are humans everywhere we go. We don't stop being a human when we arrive at work. And I think that is part of dismantling those attitudes and sort of stereotypes and ways of behaving that are destructive right now. So that's my wish.
I'm there with you. Thank you for sharing that. And Benjamin?
I prepare to come after Steve, but
I need to switch it up.
To the end. Yeah. As Steve said earlier, you shared this question before, and I'm very thankful for that, because this kind of question always throws me off a bit, because I can never really decide between my idealist self and my realist self. So my realist is people are a little bit more aware about themselves and their impact, like what Bev said earlier about the context that one or everyone is in, and being more self-aware with regards to that, and being more in contact with themselves in order to allow more people to belong in the spaces that everybody right now belongs to. So everything being a little bit more inclusive, you could say, maybe. And the idealist would be like, okay, no more pay gaps, and no more everybody being aware of kind of like the structural isms that are out there, and not feel threatened by them, everybody being self-aware enough so they don't feel threatened by them. Because in my experience, like a lot of people, whether they can actually say it out loud or not, they feel threatened by even people who are not like directly affected by something like racism. They are still like threatened by it, and I hope I'm making sense. Sorry,
you're making sense. I get you.
Okay, so somewhere between those two extremes would be nice.
It sounds amazing, and I'm hoping there with you. So I'm hoping that we can at least get to a better place where we are right now. Steve?
When I think about this one, and there's a lot of things that I would really, really, really like for us to be doing in 2025. But the one is, there's a quote by Stephen Covey, the big leadership guru, and he, most people don't listen with the intent to understand; they listen with the intent to reply. And I think if I think about 2025, it's that listening will be a bigger deal than it is right now. And I think we're getting there, but really hearing our, all the quote unquote other stories, and really listening to not just respond to, great, well, here's what I think. No, really trying to understand what people are saying, experiencing, feeling, and then what can we do if it's that feeling and they're sharing that it's not a good place that I'm at. Are you hearing me? And what are you going to do to take action so that it doesn't happen? So that's kind of my hope for 2025, that we're more listening to understand versus listen to reply.
Listen and learn. That's that's how I share it. We need to activate that more often instead of forcing people to follow something or to embrace something that they are not ready for. But what you can do is activate the listen and learn, so that at least they are aware. So I totally agree. And this has been a very inspiring and impactful conversation. And I just wanted to thank the three of you for making this happen. I'm hoping that those who are leaders, and that means also all the people are leaders, because you can be a self-leader as well, that you will at least work on the things that were shared here, so that you can amplify your self-awareness and that you can amplify belonging, not only for yourself, but also for other people that you are working with and for. So thank you for watching this conversation. And again, I would recommend just rewatching the show or re-listening to the show. And I also wanted to highlight next week's episode as well. It will be an interesting conversation, because today I'm talking about belonging, and next week I'm talking about what happens when people are being excluded the hard way, right? The harsh way. So workplace bullying is a very delicate topic. I have been in several situations myself, and I felt like now is the time to have this conversation with amazing guest speakers as well. And I'm hoping that you will join this session as well, and looking forward to next week. So I want to say thank you to my guest panel of today, Benjamin, Bev, and Steve, for sharing your amazing thought seeds. And I hope you'll join the next episode. So thank you. Enjoy your day, enjoy your morning, or enjoy your afternoon. It's my evening here. This is the last thing that I'm going to do, and shut down.
Good for you. Good for you. Thank you.
Good self-awareness.
Definitely.
Good self-awareness.
Thank you for watching.
Take care.
Thank you very much. Be well.
Bye-bye.